Welcome back, YouTubers. It's Adam here, and I want to talk about episode 3 of the Gen 8 pack kit build. If you haven't checked out the last 2 episodes, you should do so right now. They'll be in the video description below. Additionally, while we're talking about all of those YouTube things, first and foremost, if you haven't hit that like button or subscribe to this channel, again, please do so. Stick around, leave a comment for me in the comment section. I do my best to answer each and every one of them. And additionally, hit that subscribe button and alert bell so that you get notified when every video comes out or if we go back to the live feeds. Speaking of which, in case anybody was wondering, live at 9:45 will be back. However, my internet is so unreliable right now that I just can't put out anything of any kind of reliable quality. So until everything gets fixed in that realm via the internet provider, I'm kind of stuck. So I'm going to work on this pack kit build and move things forward in that direction. You may have guessed already from A, probably the title, and B, the wheel and tire selection in front of you, that this episode is going to be about wheels and tires. So I've decided to talk about a few things with wheels and tires. First and foremost, why I chose the selection I chose, and how wheels and tires can benefit you in a competition-oriented build. Also, how you kind of need to have them lined up when you go to build your body and your bumpers and your sliders for a very specific reason. Additionally, I want to talk a little bit about how to vent your tires and the age-old dilemma of vent or don't vent, and what exactly that does for you in the performance world. If you like what you've seen so far, stick around because we're going to cover all of that in this episode 3 of the pack kit build series. Alright guys, welcome back. I first and foremost want to talk about the why I chose the wheel and tire selection that I chose. So I chose first to go with a 2-2 wheel. And let's just go right out of the gate and talk about the elephant in the room, which is the choice to not go with the method wheels. Now, there's a very specific reason why I didn't go with the methods, the Vanquish methods, and I chose to go with the similar Chinese knockoffs. There's 2 reasons actually. A, this build has been all about kind of doing things on the lower budget spectrum of what goes on, and 2, I had a buddy who already had these wheels. They came to me used. They are not perfect, but they're not far from it, and to be completely honest, if I choose to go this route, which I'm leaning towards right now, I will be painting them anyway, so it didn't really matter what the quality of them was like. Now, if you do choose to go Vanquish, the Vanquish wheels are very, very incredibly well designed. They are machined precisely. The finish on them is second to none and is far superior to the Vanquish wheel. The Vanquish wheel is a blatant ripoff of the other method. I just don't have the exact same wheel for wheel combo right here. And also is decent fit and finish. Not as nice, but also not as expensive. There's one specific reason why I choose these wheels over the Vanquish wheels almost every time. And for those of you who know everything about Vanquish and you know all of the Vanquish wheels, you're going to tell me that yes, I can get them in the narrow size, because that's why I choose to go with the Chinese wheel versus the Vanquish wheel. You see, I'm running a 2-2 beadlock here for a 1.9 tire. I enjoy how the look of that 1.9 tire goes over that 2-2 wheel. I think it kind of gives the wheel a bigger profile on the tire, and I just think it makes the truck overall look a little meaner. Now, I chose to go with that setup because that's what I've been running on all of my stuff for quite some time. Your foam tuning changes just a little bit, although not that much. The big downfall for the method, Vanquish method for me, is the width. And when I go to put them in this tire, it balloons the sidewalls of the tire out, and the tire just doesn't look as good, doesn't perform effectively, and I'm overall unhappy with how all of that works. Now you can kind of cheat the system there, and it does work if you take this Vanquish faceplate, you take all of the backing, the rings and so on and so forth of the Vanquish wheels, and you mate them together and you will get the Method faceplate. And I still may do that depending on which color I choose to go with in the final paint scheme. You see, I really love these orange Methods, but they don't always go with every single paint scheme that I could possibly think of to put out there. So that's why I choose the Vanquish wheels over the Vanquish wheels, and if you do not like that, I'm sorry guys. I'm not hating on Vanquish. I love their products. I own a bunch of their stuff. I will continue to buy a bunch of their stuff. That width in the size wheel that I want, in the style that I want, is very hard to find, and these are quite readily available. Now, wheels aside, let's talk a little bit about tire choice. I chose the KLR X4 because that is what I'm running on my current Class 2 comp truck. This is the gold compound. Voodoo has multiple compounds in all of their tires. I have run the red compound of this tire, and this is the gold. I actually tend to prefer the gold compound in the OG KLR, and I genuinely love the red compound in the tiny tires, the 4.19s. In case you haven't picked up on it already, yes, I do have a lot of KLR tires. I will tell you though that there is a link in the video description where you can pick them up from the RC Addict Store if he has any in stock. As all of you know, if you know anything about Voodoos and the KLRs, they are often out of stock because they do quite well. As for foams, I'm just going to be running the recommended old style, not the new style foam, where it's the two-stage standard foam that Ot6 was putting out with these tires. That's currently what I have in my wheelhouse of things that are kicking around at the house right now. And as I said, all these parts have, for the most part, for this build have been laying around, so this build has been very low budget for me and fun to kind of pick my brain and put together all these parts and pieces that I've got kicking around. Let's talk about that age-old question of, do you vent or do you not vent? I believe that you should always vent an RC tire. You see, I've been doing this for a long time, and if you choose to not vent your RC tire, the atmosphere around you will affect how your tire performs. Now let me give you some examples. Back in the days when we were doing comps in the winter and it was very cold in the place we were competing, it was right at the very beginning of my learning and my understanding of how all of this RC stuff worked. I did not vent my tires, I did not vent my wheels, because I thought, well, I don't want to get snow in there. Yes, I was running all over the snow at that point, and I run a lot in water at that point, and I didn't want to get water inside of there, degrade my foams, ruin what I had going on, so on and so forth. Plus, real car tires are not vented, so why would I vent an RC car's tires? Well, that was all well and good until I brought them from a warm environment to a cold environment, in which case my tires sucked in and I got big flat spots and I was going on down the comp course like thud, 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 thud. Right there, I knew that something wasn't quite working out. Now, if you run in a temperature-controlled environment where the temperature is never going to change and the air inside your tire is always going to remain the same regardless of any of those factors, then that's great. And I'm not knocking air-filled tires, but for my application, they just simply do not work. I've had far better success using foams to figure out what's going on and how to have the tire work. Let's talk about venting. Do you vent your wheel? Do you vent your tire? A lot of people say vent the wheel, a lot of people say vent the tire. The main school of thought that I've tended to live by when choosing which one to vent is basically this. Do I want to drill a hole in a very expensive wheel? Not so much. Do I want to put a hole in a very expensive tire? Not so much. So which one's going to give me the most benefit? Now, if you go and you get your truck in the water, you get a whole bunch of water sucked into your tire in those foams, and it's just wet and full of water, your truck will not perform the same way that it does when your foams are completely dry. So again, that's the argument for don't vent or do vent? Well, if you're going to vent, my vote is for vent the tire. The thought process there is that when you hit that throttle and you ping it, that those tires will shoot the water right out of all of the little vent holes. Now there's a little bit of theory in there that actually works, and I think that it is better than having the wheel itself vented, because there is a possibility for the water to get out while the truck is just sitting or while you're running it. However, do I think that just pinging the throttle evacuates all the water from the foams? No, I don't. I'm not under that illusion at all. However, I will tell you that with the wheel and the tire all mounted up, all you've got to do is squeeze it real well, and there goes the water. It shoots out. For the most part, your foams get to be able to dry out a little bit. They're not perfect. Foams degrade over time. You might need to upgrade in that area eventually. I will be venting each and every one of these. My tool of choice is this guy. It can be had at pretty much any tool store. I believe this is a leather punch. It has a bunch of different settings for thicknesses. I go with the second one, and I try to go evenly spaced around the tire with 4 holes. One here, 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 and here. That has worked really well for me. It has provided a solid amount of airflow and allows my foams to do their job. It allows me to get the water out when I need the water out, so on and so forth. That's what I do and how I set up the wheels and tires. I'm going to cut to a time lapse of me putting all of this together. I'll cut back, have some more conversation with you guys here in a minute. Check it out.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Alright guys, and we're back from bolting together all these wheels and tires, and as you can see, this whole thing looks a little different now that the body is on it with the wheel and tire combo going on. A lot of what I thought I was going to see is very much coming to light. So first off, let's start in the front end, because I feel like that's where the least amount of stuff is happening to this body when I go to build it. To start in the front, I have pretty decent tire travel currently with the trim the way that it is. I haven't decided exactly how I want to lay that part of the body out specifically. I genuinely like this cut that they've got going on. However, I would love to see that slide down just a little bit more. Kind of bury those frame rails up in the body just a touch. Whoever cut this before me must have had some kind of decision going on that was very similar to what I have going on. Now, where the main difficulty comes is in the back, and in case you didn't notice, it's shifting up and down a little bit on the body here as I kind of work on it and move things around. I'm not too worried about that. All I was really worried about for the most part was, is my width going to be okay? It would appear that I am okay with width. My inside of my tires are not wider than the widest part of my body. So that seems like it's going to work. Everything sits fine there. Where my issue lies is in the back, and I knew this was going to be the case. There is so much rub, tire rub, that there isn't any way that that could stay square like that and stay that slammed down on the ground. What I'm going to be looking at doing, and you guys already knew this if you've watched the previous videos, is my goal here is to turn this into a truck, but I'm also going to dovetail the rear. Now what that will do is it will allow me to narrow the width of the body at the rear. And so I will follow the Sorca guidelines to a T, because that's the rule set that I'm building for. It will also allow me to extend the body outward, making for this distance that is on the frame rails here. The goal there being that I will have extended the body outward in the rear far enough to get to the end of those frame rails and put a bumper back there where it needs to be. As I dovetail this truck from somewhere in like the midsection here, it will allow for all of that articulation to happen with the rear shocks. Some other things to consider as I'm building. Front tire clearance is a tiny bit of an issue, although as I said, I'm not super worried about that. I will get that taken care of. I'd like to see this body sit just a little bit lower. I'm not a big fan of how much of this plastic is hanging out in the front here. I'm not 100% sure yet what direction I want to take that. Some of that will come with the cutting and the trimming and just kind of feeling out how things go. The whole goal here is to very much narrow this body up and shorten its height. Now, I will have to check the exact rules, and I will talk about the exact spec of the rule in which Sorka states how tall your body must be in Class 2. My other Class 2 is sitting right on that line. I intentionally did that based on the fact that that lower height helps my center of gravity. So this is a big heavy roof, although not all of it's going to be there, and lowering that down will absolutely help me. All right guys, that kind of does it for episode 3 of this build series. I hope you learned a little bit about how and why tire choice and wheel choice and all of that becomes important when you're building a truck to compete in a scale competition. I want to thank you all for tuning in and watching episode 3 of the build series. I genuinely appreciate each and every one of your views. Leave a comment, ask me a question, get that comment section flowing. Again, check out the video description. Inside the video description will be a link to the RC Addict website where you can pick up these killer Voodoo KLR X4s and any other goods that you may possibly need. Hit that subscribe button, hit that alert bell, and stick around because this thing is really just getting started. What is coming next is the interesting part, and I can't wait for you to see how this body transforms and comes to life with what I have inside my head, because the reality is, no matter how much I talk about it, I can't really tell you exactly what it's going to be, how, or why. So I will catch you guys all next time on episode 4 of this build series. Thank you guys for tuning in. Later.